The summer of that year was marked by a pleasant warmth and a sun that seemed to gently kiss the skin. Soft breezes kept the temperature just right, never too hot, never too cold. It was the kind of perfect weather Sally would remember forever. Sally was an 8-year-old girl with curly brown hair and bright green eyes. She was the very picture of politeness and honesty. Her parents adored her and often said how lucky they were to have such an obedient and sincere daughter. As she played cheerfully with her friends, her mother, Marie, smiled warmly from the doorway, apron still clean, and called her in it was lunchtime. Without hesitation, Sally ran to the table. During lunch, Marie served peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the crusts cut off, along with carrot and celery sticks. As she placed the plates down, she mentioned that Uncle Johnny was coming to visit. Sally's eyes lit up with surprise and joy. With crumbs still on her lips, she excitedly asked more about his arrival, and Marie confirmed it with a smile. The idea of a possible trip to the amusement park and the mention that her friends Sarah and Jenny might come too made Sally even more excited for the holiday. Uncle Johnny's arrival was something she'd been counting down to. As he stepped out of the car and stretched his arms, looking tired from the road, Sally dropped everything and ran toward him. Johnny smiled and scooped her up in a warm hug, asking how she'd been. Beaming, Sally pointed to her friends and suggested they all go tell her mom he had arrived. Together, they went inside, calling out for Marie, who greeted Johnny with a mix of relief and happiness. After a few minutes of catching up, Sally returned to her playtime, reminded by her mom to be back before nightfall. As dinner time approached, Sally's father arrived, visibly happy to see his brother. They shook hands, hugged, and shared a laugh. During the conversation, Johnny casually mentioned that he and Karen had split up. Though her father seemed concerned at first, Johnny reassured him that he was doing just fine. He even appreciated the freedom to make choices for himself now. They laughed again and joined the others at the table. Over dinner, compliments flew back and forth. Johnny thanked Marie for the meal, and she accepted graciously. Sally, smiling from ear to ear, announced how much she was enjoying the food, which earned her a round of laughter from the grown-ups. As the evening went on, Sally began to yawn and rub her eyes. Marie noticed right away and suggested it was time for bed. Sally nodded and took her plate to the sink. When Marie started to escort her to her room, Johnny offered to help. Marie thanked him and agreed. Johnny walked with Sally to her bedroom and gently closed the door behind them. While she looked for her pajamas, he asked if she needed help, and she gave a sleepy nod. They went through a few options, a strawberry print she giggled at, and said no. A unicorn one she wasn't feeling either, until she finally picked a soft pink nightgown. Excitedly, she got ready to change, and Johnny stayed close, saying he'd help just a little since she looked tired. He helped her slip the nightgown over her head and adjusted the sleeves gently. Sally gave him a sleepy smile and jumped onto the bed. Marie came into the room soon after, asking if her daughter was ready for sleep. Johnny, standing on the other side of the bed, said she was and offered to tuck her in. Marie smiled, came over, kissed Sally on the forehead, and wished her sweet dreams. Sally replied lovingly. After brushing her daughter's hair back, Marie picked up the clothes from the floor and stepped out of the room. Johnny smiled, turned off the light, and gently closed the door behind him, locking it. Then he turned to look at Sally with an unsettling smile. In the days that followed, Marie started noticing a change in Sally's behavior. The bright, energetic girl she knew now seemed distant, quiet, and withdrawn. Concerned, Marie decided to speak with her before letting her go out to play. She led Sally to a quiet corner, knelt down, and gently asked if everything was okay. Sally stood still, arms crossed, eyes staring off somewhere far away. Then tears slowly welled up. Marie was taken aback. She held her daughter and asked what was wrong. Between sobs, Sally whispered that something had happened, something she didn't want to be part of. Her voice trembled as she spoke about a game she hadn't wanted to play, a game someone had made her play anyway. Marie furrowed her brow and stroked Sally's hair, trying to calm her down. Wanting to shield her from more distress, she softly said that maybe it had just been a bad dream, and reassured her that she was safe now. Sally's tears slowed, and she began to settle. Marie kissed her forehead and suggested she splash some water on her face before going back outside with her friends. Sally nodded with a shy smile and headed to the bathroom. Later that afternoon, Johnny and Frank returned home. Frank gave Sally a little wave, which she returned quietly. Johnny also greeted her, but noticed her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Inside the house, Johnny overheard Marie and Frank discussing the so-called nightmare. Frank was puzzled. He asked who he was, the one that appeared in Sally's dream. Marie admitted she didn't know, but that something about Sally's behavior was starting to worry her deeply. Johnny, standing just out of sight, listened in. He put on a face of innocent surprise and walked in, pretending he had just arrived and hadn't heard a thing. Marie asked Johnny if he could go to the store and pick up a few items. He agreed, and trying to sound casual, suggested that Sally go with him. Marie nodded, thinking some fresh air might do her good. Sally hesitated, glancing back at her dolls and friends, but eventually followed Johnny out to the car. Once inside, she looked at him and asked quietly, "Did Mom really ask you to go to the store?" Johnny replied, "She did," with a calm tone, and they drove off. As they rode in silence, Johnny tried to cheer her up by saying they could pick out something extra at the store. Sally just gave a forced smile and looked out the window. When they got close to the shop, Sally noticed something was off. Johnny didn't slow down to turn into the parking lot. "Uncle Johnny, it's back there," she said. He didn't answer. He just kept driving, that unsettling smile frozen on his face. Sally turned to look out the back window and saw the store disappearing behind them. He pulled into a quiet community park, one that was usually empty on Sundays. Sally sat stiffly in her seat, her breathing growing shallow. Johnny turned off the engine and looked at her with a cold stare. "You told your mom, didn't you?" he asked. Sally frantically shook her head no. "You're not playing the way we talked about, Sally," she whimpered, trying to explain, but he leaned closer. "You said you would play with me. You lied." Ignoring her trembling and pleas, he reached for the door. His words were quiet, almost like a distorted lullaby. A few days later, the headlines were everywhere. Body of 8-year-old Sally Williams found in community park. Johnny returned home, saying they'd been victims of a robbery, that 2 men had ambushed them and taken Sally. His performance was so convincing that no one doubted him, at least, not at first. That night, as Sally's body was taken for autopsy, Johnny was at Frank and Marie's house, offering support and comfort. He stayed late, speaking softly, grieving with the family. But sometime after midnight, something woke him up. It started with a sound in the hallway. He assumed it was Frank or Marie, restless and unable to sleep. But this sound, it was different. It was faint, like soft, crying like a child. He sat up and walked toward the noise in the dark. At the end of the hallway, he stopped. There, sitting quietly on the floor, was a little girl staring out the window at the moonlight. Johnny froze. His throat tightened. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" he asked, panic rising. The girl stopped crying. Slowly, she lowered her hands from her face. Her body looked twisted, her skin pale and marked with red stains. A deep wound crossed her head, and her green eyes gleamed in the darkness. Her dress was torn, her legs scratched, feet dirty from the earth. On the fabric was a stitched name, Sally. She stood up slowly. Her lips parted in a crooked smile, revealing teeth smeared with something dark. "Come play with me," she whispered. "Let's finish our game, Uncle Johnny." She reached out her hand. They say justice was served that night. The screams could be heard all down the street. Frank and Marie rushed from their room and followed the sounds, only to find pieces of Johnny scattered through the hallway. In one of his hands, a belt. In the other, a piece of fabric with Sally's name embroidered on it. The truth had finally come to light. If this gave you chills, subscribe for more stories that mess with your mind. I'll see you in the next video.